What's a boring hobby that's not boring at all? Language learning. It's a really fun process, although sometimes it can feel like a grind. Finding cool rocks. No joke. You get to walk about, seeing cool things, breathing fresh air, and you get a geology lesson bonus. Painting. You're constantly adapting to what the paint is doing, thinking, using your intuition, and you're a lot more active than you appear to be. Research. Or at least in my opinion, if you're looking for information on a topic you genuinely enjoy, it's actually quite fun to learn a lot about it from different sources. Model building. At first your stuff going to come out looking like crap. Too much glue, not enough glue. You cut a wrong piece. You have put a decal on wrong, etc. But after a while, it starts to become peaceful and enjoyable to a point that you genuinely take pride in what you have built. So you go for harder builds and better quality, and eventually you have a massive collection of wonderful models and figurines. I don't know if this qualifies as a hobby, but I love making Spotify playlists for super obscure themes, like the summer of 1997, or the feeling you get when you realize you are driving too fast and it's raining, or these would make a good soundtrack for a zombie movie. I'm currently working on a playlist of songs to play a stranded Victorian-era time traveler to get them up to speed on 21st century American musical culture. Edit. I'm very flattered by all the requests for a link, but I would rather not. My Spotify account is under my real name and face. Gardening. You'd be surprised. Woodworking with hand tools. I'm addicted and have bought 5 hand planes and can't stop. Knitting. Actually, if you can do it right, it's actually fun. Note that you'll probably rage quit if you get it wrong. I do counted cross stitch. I'm not creative at all, but give me a coded pattern that creates a map. I always do maps, but you can make way more intricate things than you think if you invest the time. And I'm all over that shit. It's how I quit smoking. Editing videos. A lot of my friends say it looks boring, but it's actually soothing and calming after a stressful day. Jigsaw puzzles. And also birdwatching. Sometimes you see aerial combat taking place with these birds, especially crows against hawks. Geocaching. Started this when my then GF and I were dirt poor in college, and now we have logged about 1,700 caches in about a dozen different countries. Even just doing it near our home is awesome, because you get to see things you'd never see otherwise. Highly recommend. Edit. My inbox has been destroyed by people looking for more information on this, which is awesome. To get started, go to geocaching.com. Growing algae. I sometimes grab some empty glass containers, ones that I cleaned and wanted to reuse, fill it with water. Rainwater is the best. Put in a bit of soil or any organic matter. I have a good collection of algae jars and a big bucket. They don't need much maintenance and look cool too. It feels good when you see how you just recycled and produced oxygen for free. I mean, I'm at least not a waste of oxygen. Edit. I did not expect that many upvotes and replies. Thank you all. I've been answering stuff for 5 hours now. Falling down rabbit holes on Wikipedia. Birding. People love hiking and going outdoors, but as soon as you add in birds, suddenly it's seen as boring. Birds are so diverse and you'll never know everything there is to know. Crossword puzzles. Like, actually buying the books of nothing but crossword puzzles and working up to the New York Times Sunday puzzle. Car spotting. In my opinion, there's some cool cars to see. I specifically like classics. And even some Japanese tuners. They're cool. Model railroading and/or train simulation. Writing down my opinions on SpongeBob episodes in excruciating detail. Edit. If you're interested, then here's my Encyclopedia SpongeBobia page. I'm not very active anymore because I kinda fell of the SB train since 2019, but I have seen every episode in seasons 1 to 11 and most of 12, so like, if you wanna talk to me about SB, that's cool. Also, if you message me on the wiki, I'm sorry if I don't respond immediately. The wiki fandom has gotten a lot worse in the social side, so I hardly use the website nowadays. Bonsai. I thought it would be a nice little jaunt since you only have to look after them like 3 times a year and major attention every few years as long as you water and fertilize regularly. Lies. All lies. Days planning and diagramming how I'm going to frock up this tiny tree I've invested years in. Multiple books bought and read, then like 12 frocking hours wiring up this tree and painstakingly watching to see if the apex is gonna do what I want or if that gin is going to frocking work out. I grow orchids. I thought they were breachy. I had not yet experienced the wrath of a juniper in a place that does not hit freezing temps. Crocheting. It can be relaxing. And you have something to wear. I've made a few pieces that won blue ribbons at the county fair. May not be much, but I was super proud of it. Rock collecting. People thinking it's dull until you realize I walked through the woods and waded by riverbanks to get some of mine. That's more adventure than most see these days. Language learning. It's slow, methodical, and can be frustrating at times. But that moment when you can form simple sentences without much effort is probably one of the most gratifying feelings I've ever felt. Collecting coins. There are so many weird ways of doing this hobby. It can bring you to the deep recesses of eBay, a garage sale or flea market in the middle of nowhere, your grandmother's attic or a random field with a metal detector. And there are so many variations on how you can collect memorabilia coins, state quarters, pre-war coins, silver coins, gold coins or coins from a specific year or whatever qualifier you can think of. I have a few. Boring hobbies. 1. Reading. Every book is an adventure. 2. Sewing. I find it very relaxing, and have fun trying new patterns. 3. Puzzles. Lock-picking for sure. I see a lot of people with this FUD mentality that only criminals pick locks, but I'm here to tell you that is not the case. Matter of fact, most criminals do not pick locks at all. If you like puzzles and complex mental exercises, lock-picking is great. Calming, filled with satisfaction and develops fine motor skills. There's nothing else I have found that has the support and community behind it. I have met great people in this hobby and we basically are all like a knitting club, but with lock-picking. Definitely a place to develop lifelong friends. Cooking. It seems mundane for everyone, but imagine if you could make your own favorite dishes without spending a huge amount of cash into the fancy restaurant or any kind of restaurant. You might able spend your cash for the ingredients, but you can have your favorite meal for the next few days. Bonus if you manage to cook a new dish properly. You might impress peoples around you, especially toward your sew. Birdwatching. Playing chess. Making spreadsheets. I love finding patterns and stuff. History. Literally about any time frame in history you want, like. It's not boring, it's fascinating. Watching trains. Even my own family is like. It's so boring. But I like thinking about where it came from and where it's going. I like the noise and love the rumble in the ground when a hard-working train goes by. Making holes in wood and stuff. Genealogy. Cross-stitch. There's a wide range of projects you can do at different skill levels. It's nice to keep your hands busy during podcasts, and it is relatively low cost. Beekeeping. Puzzles. Don't even get me started. They're fun. Take your mind off things, and at Barnes & Noble's you can find some really cool ones. I bought a Frida Kahlo one and learned about her whilst having fun building her life story through a puzzle. Writing long essays about nothing. I will sit down and write paragraphs about bullshit, and make it like a rant, and then delete them. Edit. People keep asking why I delete them. The process is, I write everything out, get it all out of my system, and then let it all go. It's not about writing well and going back and editing them and making them perfect. It's about writing about what I want and what I feel and letting it all go. Reading is a wonderful hobby. Learning. You have the internet where you can learn anything you wish in hundreds of enjoyable ways, and it's practically free. Gaining knowledge should feel awesome. It's a shame school does the opposite to most people. Reading. It's an adventure in your mind. Radio astronomy. Receiving a signal that was made when the star that calcium that our bones was come from was still 1 billion years away from going supernova puts things in perspective. Swiping through Zillow at 4 a.m. Archery. Exciting, but very expensive. Larking. Also known by the less glamorous term scavenging, picking. I wander around creeks, the countryside, old tracts of land, middens etc. and pick up pieces. You can find pieces of old crockery, glass, old coins, rocks, fossils and pieces of history. Sometimes I use a metal detector, but mostly it is eyes only. I can't keep it all, so I also take photos. Look down when out walking. You could find hidden treasures anywhere. Reading comments. It's interesting to read what different people talk about, how diverse people are. The little clue that a comment gives to get a glimpse or an idea or an assumption of the kind of person the commentator left. It's fascinating how everyone can comment what they are actually thinking and start a conversation or discussion, whereas in real life that person would just probably remain silent. Edit. This sounded more serious than I thought. I have to admit that there are also many humorous and feed-up comments that makes life a little less boring. Any hobby that you genuinely enjoy will not be boring to you. My husband has a couple of fish tanks he absolutely loves. I never saw the appeal, but he's so enthusiastic about them that I'm quite invested now. Birdwatching, or more accurately, bird listing. It's like completing a real-life Pokédex. Dungeons and Dragons. Maybe it's not labeled as boring, but as awkward and embarrassing. In reality, it is so awesome. It's playing Lord of the Rings in the woods with the boys, but as adults in the comfort of your home, and it's the most fun bonding experience I've had with my friends since ever. It is one of the best things I've ever gotten into as it's an outlet for both creativity and adventure. And no game has ever given me as much as D&D. Plane spotting. Board games. Whenever you mention to people that you play board games, they think of classic games that were made over 100 years ago, like Monopoly. But there have been major revolutions in tabletop games in the last 30 years, and it is an exciting pastime and a great way to socialize. It's kind of like if very few people were aware of modern video games and most people just thought of Pong every time you told them you liked video games. Everyone constantly looking down on it, thinking it's for kids and or boring, just because they don't realize how much they've changed and how good they are now. Crossword puzzles and or Sudoku. My husband finds shoe shining a therapeutic hobby. As far as I'm concerned, walking. You'd be surprised at what you find while walking, which you'd normally drive by without a second glance. My pamphlet collection. I have accepted that I am a terrible photographer and I will most likely lose half the photos I take and not remember what they were about anyway. So when I go to an event or a cool place I always get a pamphlet for my collection. It has information and guaranteed the professional photos in it are going to be good. My oldest is from a cruise I was on about 15 years ago. Writing mathematical proofs. I love problem solving. I love studying pure mathematics. Since I had to leave college early and never finished my training in the art, it's sort of stalled, but from time to time I still read through textbooks and give myself problems to solve. Mathematical maturity grows so slowly outside of college. I'm sad. Sitting in front of my PC doing absolutely nothing for a few minutes to a few hours until I regain the energy I need to play games on said PC. Writing. It is something that I took up during lockdown and haven't stopped since. Especially fun when you have tools such as this to create your own world, story, characters, in a visual way. Embroidery. Lego is really fun. One of my hobbies is watching movies. I knows it's a thing everyone does, but I get super into it and I collect VHS, so it's like a ritual, setting up, playing the tape, rewinding, etc. And it brings me so much excitement and fun watching movies. Cooking. Thought it was a chore, but man is it a rewarding activity. I've got to say, reading novels has absorbed my time lately. Shooting. If you think about it, you're just shooting at paper or metal plates, but there's something satisfying about the math and physics involved in hitting target at further ranges. At 500 yards and further you really gotta account for wind and drop. Best shot I took was at 1000 yards with 30.06 on a 6 feet target just shy of the bullseye. Math. It's genuinely fascinating once you get deep into it and don't have to deal with city teachers. Fountain pens. It sounds dumb, but it makes every single time you have to write something a nice experience. Plus, people almost always ask, so I keep a handful of Pilot Varsities around and just give them away. It always makes people's day and can be their introduction to a whole new thing to be excited about. In fact, someone giving one to me is how I got into it. Philately. Stamp collecting. Staring at the fan. My friends say it's depressing and weird, but I like doing it. Billiards. Editing large documents and making sure the space between each letter is perfect. They can't crash, but they can't be too far apart. It's extremely satisfying. Reading. I'm always shocked and saddened when I hear adults brag that they haven't read a book since leaving school. There is so much to experience and learn from books. How could you not want that? Some people think jigsaw puzzles are boring. I think they're the best way to zone out of this world and get completely lost in a beautiful image and my own thoughts. It's like meditation for me, and when I'm done I feel revitalized and accomplished. Collecting teeth. RC car racing. Mycology. Building models. I think it kind of has a reputation for being a boring old man, nerd hobby, but it's super rewarding seeing a piece come together and scratches an itch for someone like me who is artistically interested but not actually good at art law. You can get deeper into it. Customizing, painting, dioramas, etc. Or just out the box, it can be fun. I recommend people who are interested in it starting with Gunpla since it requires less tools. I had a really rough late 2020, but now I have something super fun and with a very supportive community too. Sewing. It's always, sewing's gay, for women. But then they all envy me for my fitted plaid shirts and breech how nothing fits them off the rack. Shrimp keeping. I started a 10-gallon tank when the pandemic started, and it's been a ton of fun. They're tiny critters, but they're surprisingly active and soothing to watch. No hobby is boring, but mechanical drafting and geometry are very unexpected hobbies of mine. I knew I picked the wrong major. Knitting looked boring at first, but it's really a lot of fun. Memory training. Sewing. So many people still think it's just quilting, but there are tons of things you can make with a sewing machine. I've made bras, corsets, wedding gowns, kinked gear, curtains for my patio. And quilting gets a bad rap, too. Like only little old ladies do it, cutting up old clothes to make boring bed covers. Quilting is an amazing art form and incredibly competitive. Magnet fishing. It's awesome. It's exciting when you find anything even kind of cool, and it takes you to places you would never normally visit. Competition tablescaping. Table setting. I see this at the state fair and I just don't get it, but it must be fun for someone. Fishing. People think there is no action. And sometimes, it just be like that, lol. Then there are days where you can't keep them off the hook. But there is no better way to spend a day than on a riverbank or a boat with good friends and family. Practice safe handling techniques, and catch and release, and take care of the environment. Fishing. Amateur astronomy. Model frocking trains before you knew it, we weren't even drinking in the daytime anymore.